stage, the moderator, the host of this evening, Jim Rakete and Michael Ballhaus.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
This is overwhelming. Good evening. It's been just a couple of weeks ago, and my feeling that the Berlinale was very young. I see myself standing at the poolside of the filmmaker in the Grunewald, a glass of Coke in my left hand, a motor drive Nikon in the other hand, and I look across the pool. All of a sudden, I see a guy who's coming in with a little mustache, very fancily styled, and a velvet brown jacket with a scarf. And I turn to the person beside me and I say, "Who's that? Who's that man?" And she says, "You mean that good-looking man?" That's Michael Ballhaus. And I realize something is happening to this party and something is happening to the situation. Because, you know, a small kid falls into the pool and struggles with the water, cannot swim, somebody has to pick him out, and the Ballhaus guy has precisely the same good reason for staying outside and not jumping into the pool, because he's got a glass and he's got the scarf, and I've got my motor Nikon. So some actor has to dive and, you know, save the poor kid. And he's not touched by that. Was not his kid, was not Florian or Sebastian, must have been another kid. Ballhaus looks at the scene like 180 degrees pan. You know? And you could sense there was this friendliness and this diplomatic lightness of this man that has made him famous on so many film sets. And here we are, and I should talk with Michael Ballhaus about his life and his achievement. And I say there's nothing easier than that. You know, I have my briefcase. I have a list. This is not the awards. It's a role model, because you can roll it. So these are just the films, and don't let it fool you. The marks on it don't mean that I haven't seen the other ones, not at all. It's a lot of films. If we would devote like a minute to each film, we'd be over time, Michael. We have to focus here. And another thing is, for the sake of Feng Shui, Berlinale Feng Shui, this should stand between us. And if you touch it, you'll know what it is. It's your first camera.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, the Rollei.
The Rollei.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that.
That was one of the first things you did, right? When you were fleeing Berlin as a kid because it was bombed by the Allies, you were going to Coburg.
Yeah.
And you had this wonderful family of mother was actress, father was actress. So this place means a lot to you.
Yes, it does, because my mother was in this theater on stage when she was young. And it was always impressive to hear what she played on stage, and I watched her sometimes when I was little, and I admired her a lot. She was a wonderful, wonderful woman. She was running this theater until the age of 92, and that was amazing. She was an amazing person.
So you had this creative community, and you found yourself a castle. Now, everybody will think it's sort of a Disney castle because we're talking film here, but it was theater, and it was like a rundown castle that you rented for a small price, your family, and you had your creative community there. Like it was a place where you all had breakfast together and all had lunch together and lots of rehearsals. And this is where this thing comes into play.
Yes, I started taking pictures with a small aqua box for 10 marks. And they looked at it and said, oh, this is not bad. Maybe we should buy him a big camera that he can take the pictures that we need for distribution, for showing. And I said, okay, sure, no problem. And then I got this roller, and I started really taking pictures from the plays. And not only from the play for sure, also from, young actresses and stuff, It was very nice. And young actors. Yeah, you sit there on a big table, and there are like 12 to 15 people every time, and they talk all the time, and you listen to them. And it's growing up in a huge family, and that's something different than growing up in a regular family. And that was, for me, something wonderful, because it helped me later to communicate better with more people. So with my crew and stuff like that, because I became a person that was used to talk to people and listen to people.
And the camera helped. The camera helped.
The
doing
camera
that.
was good to take nice pictures.
Yeah. And then came D-Day, the decision-making day in your life when you coincidentally went to Munich and ran into this film set because your parents knew Max von Ophüls. And you ran into this film set, with a cinematographer by the name of Christian Matras.
Christian Matras, the name I will never forget, even when I'm really bad with names, but this name meant a lot to me. And I was watching Christian Matras and Max Ophüls working together. And it was so fascinating for me, because for me it was the combination of theater and taking pictures. And all of a sudden, the pictures started moving. So I thought, this is what I want to do. And it was absolutely clear that I couldn't do anything else but that. And then I watched them for like 2 weeks in Munich at the Bavaria, and it was clear I wanted to become a cinematographer.
You also discovered there's an international language of some sort when...
Yes, because the gaffer didn't speak a word of French, and Christian Matras didn't speak a word of German. So, but they communicated in an easy way together, and I thought, this is great. This is international, and could work in every country that you want to do.
There's also a very well-known fact about Ophüls. He always worked track and dolly, and there was a track and dolly scene that you witnessed, and the kicker was that the tracks were in frame, so the tracks had to be hidden. And how did they do that?
It was a very long tracking shot, and it wasn't meant to be that long, but Max said always, I need a little more track, I need like 5 meters more track. And then the DP said, yes, but then we see the track, and that is no good. And we all understand that. And then he said, okay, I have an idea. And he called his grip, and then they took a carpet and put it over the track, and while the camera was pulling back, the carpet slowly came over the track so that you couldn't see them. So it was solved. That was very good.
And you saw the camera moving. right?
It's
It
constantly
wasn't,
moving.
It wasn't on sticks. It was moving all the way. Because I heard, like years later, you realize how many people complain about the long tracking shots of Ophuls. Just to name an example, Coppola said how much he hated that he had to learn that and study that, these long shots that, track through a whole party, and all you see is the face and destiny in the face, decision-making in the face, and it takes for ages. But then again, these are really beautiful shots, I think. I mean...
Yes, they were really wonderful shots. And what I admired, and I always wanted to copy that when he was working in smaller, like in a small cabinet, for instance, there was a scene in a small, like, wardrobe or something. And then what he did, he was not using the whole frame, which was a cinemascope for sure. Then he just moved the frame together, and it was all of a sudden it was a square on the stage on the screen, and left and right was just black. And I always loved that. But when you come out of a small place and then go to this huge set of where the circus scene take place, then it's a very different feeling from going from small to large. And if it's ever large, then it's not, it's not the same.
You guys must have guessed that this is Lola Montez in 1950, I can't recall, but in the 50s in Munich.
Yeah.
When he came back.
Yes, and it was, unfortunately, it was very expensive, the movie, and it was not a big hit. They recut it a couple of times, but then later they discovered what a wonderful film that was, and then it got restored, and now there's a very good copy of it. They made it in the Switzerland, and now you can see it also. It's also on digital, so you can really watch this movie, and it's fantastic. It has great, great scenes, totally unusual scenes. He has shot like scenes in a coach, and he did the same thing, that he covered it left and right, and it was just inside the coach, and black left and right.
Great. So the decision was made. You were to be a cinematographer,
Right.
And the first thing you did was you went to a cinematographer, because at that point there was no film academy, no Ludwigsburg or anything. So you went to Mr. Ashley and asked directly how you could learn that.
I don't remember his name, but he was one of the best DPs in Germany.
Yeah,
What, do you remember his name?
Ashley.
Ashley, Helmut Ashley,
Yeah.
sure, yes.
Yeah.
Now I remember his name. He was very good. And he said, listen, what you should do, you should study photography first. And then you learn about the emulsion, and you learn about all these things. And you learn starting to frame right and all that. And I went to a very good photographer in Würzburg, in Franconia. And and because I had Abitur, I don't know how to call that in English, Abitur, I only had to learn it for like 2 years instead of 3. And my boss, the photographer, know that I had taken pictures before. So on my first day, he sent me mit a roller to church to take the pictures of the bride and the groom. That was funny. And in a way, it stayed like that. So I was never working hard or sweeping the floor on this job.
Never underestimate photography here. Very important. So next thing we know is something happens. You end up at the Südwestfunk Baden-Baden. Yeah, with electronic cameras. You know these pump cameras? They look like some, war game.
Right.
Huge pumps.
Yeah.
And you work your way up through a lot of TV plays and a lot of theater and TV, which was a very good part of TV in those days.
Oh yeah, they had great directors for that. And it happened because my wife Helga, she got a job in Karlsruhe. And so I moved with her to Karlsruhe. And then there was a friend of my father's knew that they were looking for somebody, looking for young DPs, young cameramen. And then, introduced myself, and I got the job for like little money to move these big mothers of cameras.